Okay, so this is the second part for Unit 1B Day 1 notes on relations, and we're going to start off with the definition of what domain and range mean. Okay, so this should match page 3 of your packet. So the first definition we're going to write down is that domain is the set of all the values of the independent variable. And you don't necessarily have to write this second part, but it's super helpful to make a note that it's the x-coordinate or the input value. Those are the two ways you'll hear it described. So in my notes, I just put a little parentheses with an x to the left of the definition. The next one is the range, which is the set of all the values of the dependent variable. Okay, so again, another way we might describe it is the y-coordinate or output. So again, I had the x for domain, and range are the set of your y values. So you're just breaking them apart into two separate groups, your x values or independent or input. There's just like all these different ways to say it. And then range is the dependent, y-coordinate, and output value. So it is a result of what you pick for x. Okay, so we're going to go through 3 examples of this, and you're going to be given one form, have to create it in the other forms, and then at the bottom we'll actually be able to tell what the domain and range is now. So for this one, this wasn't actually already in your notes, so if you'll take a second to pause the video and write down this table form of what we're starting with as the relation. Okay, so now that we have it in table form, usually ordered pairs isn't too tricky to go to right after. And so remember, we start those with our curly bracket, and then x comma y makes a point for each pair. So parentheses -2 comma 3 comma 0 comma -4 1 comma 3 and 2 comma 0, and then another curly bracket. So that's how we would represent it as ordered pairs. For our mapping diagram, we're going to make our 2 oval shapes, and this is the one that kind of looks like a table, but we don't repeat stuff. Looking over here, none of our x's seem to repeat, but we do have 3 show up twice for the y's, and we don't need to write it twice. We're only going to write that once. So let's fill those in. And I like to put them in increasing order just because it makes the most sense to me. So -4, then 0, and then a single 3 is all we need. Okay, so -2 has to point to 3. That was who he was partnered up with. 0 has to point to -4. 1 has to point to 3 also. And then 2 has to point to 0. And it doesn't look very pretty, but that is our mapping diagram. So the last one we're going to do is the graph. So just remember that your x is the left to right, and your y is your up and down. So for the first point, we're going to have an x of -2 and a y of 3. Okay. So I got that point on the graph. The next one is 0, so left to right nothing, and then just down 4. Okay. Then 1 comma 3 is right 1, up 3. And then 2 comma 0 means to the right 2 and up and down 0. Okay, so those are the 4 points on a graph. So now we can write down the domain and range. For this, we still use curly brackets, but we're only listing the x values. So you can use any of the forms you would like, but domain does need to go in order from the least value to the greatest. And remember, to the least on a number line is to the left towards the negatives, to the right on the number line is the greater values, so we're still keeping that in mind. So out of our x values, our smallest one was a -2, then 0, 1, and +2 in increasing order. So you're just going to list those numbers with commas between them, and then close it off with another curly bracket. And that would be your domain, your set of x values, input values, independent values, whatever you want to call them. Okay, and then range is going to be the same thing, but with our y's. So -4 was our smallest one, and then the next smallest one was a 0, and then we had 2 3's, But similar to mappings, when you're listing domain and range, you don't repeat values. Even if all of them were 3, you would only list it once. And that's it for example 1. So in example 2, they already have our ordered pairs completed for us. So now we're going to go straight to the table. And remember that our x values are always the first numbers in the coordinate pair because it's an ABC order, x comma y. And when I'm going from ordered pairs to the table, I just list them in the order that they show up over here. I just write them in that order. It's not until I get to the mapping that I put it from least to greatest. Okay, and then the y values, again, are the second number you see in each coordinate point. And now we have our table. On to the mapping diagram. This is where I will put them in increasing order, so just be a little careful. And we're not going to repeat anything. So let's see. We have the smallest x value is this -2. The next smallest one is the +1. Then a +2 and a +4. Looking at the y values, the smallest one is this -5. Then we have a 3, 4, and 6. Okay, so now we're just going to draw the arrow to whoever they were paired up with in the table or in the coordinate point, whichever you want to use. So 1 has to point to 3, 4 has to point to 6, 2 has to point to -5, and -2 has to point to +4. Beautiful. And last but not least, our coordinate points on the graph. Okay, so I've got my x, I've got my y. 1, 3 is right 1 and up 3. And then 4, 6 is right 4 and up 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, right at the top. Okay, 2, -5. We go right 2, and then we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then -2, 4 means left 2 for your x and up 4 for the y. There we go. Time for domain and range. So for domain, in increasing order, and again, the mapping might be, since we already did that here, I'm just going to use that. So x values were -2, 1, 2, 4. Okay, beautiful. And then range was -5, 3, 4, 6. And that's it for example 2. Okay, example 3 is actually a little tricky, I'm not going to lie, because you'll see what we're starting with here is the graph. So you have to be really comfortable reading the coordinate grid with your positives and negatives and x's and y's. So let's go ahead and give this a shot. I'm going to write them as ordered pairs first, just because that might be easier for me. So I'm going to start with the one furthest left. So he is left, what is that, 5 and up 4. So that's going to be -5, +4. Let's do this one next. So he went left 2, but then did not go up or down at all. He stayed there. So that's going to be a -2, 0. Okay, let's do the one right below. So he went left 2 as well, but then he did go down 2. So that's -2, -2. Okay, this guy is right 2 and up 2, so +2, +2. And last but not least, over on the edge, let's see, that's right 6 and down 2. So +6 and -2. Sorry, it doesn't normally look like this. Like, ideally your points would be like all nice and pretty, like blah 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 blah. But I write too big for this, so my apologies. Okay, so let's take that over to the table. So again, we're just taking this coordinate point and splitting it into an x and a y. So -5, 4, -2, 0, -2, -2, 2, 2, and Miss Wright did not give you enough rows. The last one's going to go off a little bit, so 6, -2. Last but not least, my favorite personally is the mapping. So we got to be extra careful here because there's definitely some repeating values. Our smallest x value is -5. This seems to go in order, so actually I think we're good. So we're going to have a -5, then a -2, but we only write it once, +2, +6. For our y values, our smallest one is this -2. The next smallest one is going to be a 0, followed by 2 and 4. Okay, so this might look a little messy. I'm going to do my best. -5 has to point to a +4. Doop. -2 points to 0 first, then it points to -2. 2 points to +2, and 6 also points to -2. Ooh, lots of arrows. Alright, so now let's just do our domain and range. Again, oops, I kind of forgot to put my X on Y. The mappings are the easiest ones to go off of, because we like it to go in order without repeating, which is the same idea. So -5, -2, +2, and 6. And for range, we went -2, 0, +2, and 4. Awesome. Okay, so for the last part of the video, I just want you guys to understand that, like, yeah, it's math and we use numbers, but you can have relations be represented with things that aren't numerical. So in these examples, we're looking at state versus number of representatives, and animals versus longevity, aka lifespan in years, average lifespan, I assume. So for the relation, I'm going to try, oh gosh, I'm going to do really bad at this, to fit these as ordered pairs, but I'm going to abbreviate because there's no way I can fit this. So for Alabama, I'm going to put AL, and he's paired off with that 7, so he has 7 representatives. Then California, I'm going to use a CA, has 53. Then Colorado, I think that's CO. I don't remember, but he goes with a 7. Florida goes with 25 because they have a pretty big population. And Kansas goes with 4 representatives. And then I'm going to close it off with my curly bracket. So now let's look at the domain. So again, remember, domain is your input, your x values, your independent variable, what determines your output. So for the number of representatives, that's determined by what state you're looking at. So now I'm going to list these out. So Alabama, California, Colorado, Florida, and Kansas. And then the range values are the output, the dependent variable, the y value, whatever you would like to call them, and in this case it's our number of representatives. So 7, oh, we might have to put these in order, hold on. Let's think about this. Our smallest one was actually a 4, so let's start with that, because they don't have to match the same order as the domain as far as like who they're partnered up with. We put from smallest to largest if it is numerical. After 4 comes a 7, but I only need to put it once, even though Alabama and Colorado have 7. The next would be a 25 and then a 53. Alright, so that's our range. And now for our last one, animal versus their average lifespan. Okay, so first let's just write it as some ordered pairs. So we're going to have bear and comma, wow, they live pretty long, 22.5. And then we're going to have cat, comma, 11. Then deer, comma, 12.5. And then, oh, let's see if I can fit this on there. Dog, comma, 11. Not too, I didn't know they were the same as cats. Interesting. Okay, so domain, for us in this particular case, it's going to be the independent variable, which is the type of animal. And I'm not going to fit this well. Okay, so bear, comma, cat, comma, deer, comma, dog. Ooh. And then the range will be our lifespan. Again, let's go in order from smallest to largest. Our smallest lifespan looks like our cats and dogs at 11. Then deer at 12.5, and then bears at 22.5. And this will conclude our video on domain and range with relations.